In 2020, millions of people around the world were trapped in their homes. Isolated. Alone. But at least they had a choice. What I'm about to tell you happened during that period when I was working as a temporary census taker. And it made me realize there are types of isolation far worse than a pandemic. Types that don't end when you open the door. My name is Sarah, and in June 2020, I was desperate for money. The pandemic had killed my job as a bartender, unemployment benefits barely covered rent, and my 7-year-old daughter needed medications that insurance didn't fully cover. When I saw the Census Bureau ad hiring temporary census takers, I applied the same day. The pay wasn't great, but it was guaranteed money for 3 months. And since most people were home because of lockdown, theoretically it would be easier to find them. I received basic online training: how to fill out forms, what questions to ask, how to properly identify myself. They gave me a tablet with assigned addresses, a bag with official materials, and a Census Bureau vest to wear during visits. My area covered rural communities on the outskirts of Farmington, New Mexico. Lots of isolated properties, houses spaced miles apart, no close neighbors. The kind of place where people still don't lock their doors and everyone knows everyone. Or at least that's what I thought. The first few weeks were smooth. Most people were receptive, some indifferent, others clearly annoyed with the interruption but cooperated anyway. I developed a routine: wake up early, visit 10 to 15 houses per day, get back before nightfall. Everything changed on a Tuesday, June 23rd. I had 8 houses on my list for that day. The last one was pretty far out, 40 minutes down a dirt road from town, in an area I'd never visited before. My phone's GPS gradually lost signal as I got farther away, until it completely died in the last 10 minutes of the drive. When I finally arrived, it was almost 5 in the afternoon. The house was small but well maintained. Recent paint job, tidy yard, a black pickup truck parked in the side garage. Someone definitely lived there. I grabbed my bag, checked that my vest was visible, and walked to the front door. I rang the doorbell. Silence. I waited a minute. Rang again. Nothing. This was common. People were home but didn't want to answer, especially during the pandemic. Standard protocol in these cases was to leave a notice on the door with my contact info and alternative visit times. I grabbed a notice form, started filling it out, and left it in the mailbox next to the door. I went back to the car. The next day, around 3 in the afternoon, I got a call from my supervisor. His voice was strange. Tense. "Sarah, did you visit the address on County Road 402, mile marker 17 yesterday?" I did. Nobody answered. Left the standard notice. "Well, someone from that house just called, demanding that you go back there. In person." I frowned. Demanding? Those were their words. They said if you don't complete the census today, they'll file a formal complaint against you and the Census Bureau for negligence. Even threatened a lawsuit. That didn't make sense. The day before, nobody had answered the door. Why suddenly this aggressive urgency? "Okay," I said, more out of professional reflex than actual conviction. "I'll go back there today then." "Are you sure?" The person who called, "I don't know, Sarah." There was something strange about the way they spoke. Strange how? He hesitated. Too polite. Too formal. Like artificially polite, you know? Gave me the creeps. I laughed nervously. If I start being afraid of polite people, I won't be able to work. He didn't laugh back. "Just be careful, okay? Anything happens, you get out of there." I hung up thinking he was overreacting. I arrived at the house around 4:30. The pickup was still in the garage. Everything looked exactly the same as the day before. This time, before I even reached the door, it opened. A man in his 50s was standing there, smiling. Smiling a lot. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "You must be the census taker. Come in, please. I'm so sorry about yesterday." I was in the basement and didn't hear the doorbell. He wore simple clothes, flannel shirt, jeans, slippers. Gray hair combed back. Completely ordinary appearance. But there was something about the way he spoke, each word articulated with excessive precision, like he was reading from a script. "That's not necessary, sir. I can ask the questions right here at the door." No, I insist. "It's hot out there. Come in, have some water. It'll be quick." I normally never went inside houses. But he was already stepping back, keeping the door open, clearly expecting me to follow. And I was behind on my monthly quota. If I wasted more time leaving and rescheduling, it would affect my payment. So I went in. The living room was clean, organized, decorated with old but well-kept furniture. It smelled like lavender. There were pictures on the walls, but when I looked closer, I noticed they were all landscapes. No family photos. No people. "Please sit down," he said, pointing to the couch. He sat in the armchair across from me, still with that fixed smile. I grabbed my tablet and started with the standard questions. Full name? Robert Anderson. Date of birth? March 15, 1970. How many people reside at this address? He didn't hesitate. 6. I stopped typing. Looked at him. 6 people? Yes. Me, my wife, and the 4 in the basement. The air in the room seemed to get colder. The 4 in the basement? His smile got wider. My children. They stay down there. It's cooler. I looked around. The house was small. 2 bedrooms tops. There wasn't space for 6 people to live comfortably. Can you provide me with their names and ages? I need to register all residents. Of course. Want me to call them? They don't like coming up much, but... Thump. The sound came from beneath our feet. A dull, heavy impact. Like someone pounding on the floor hard. I froze. Robert didn't react. Kept smiling as if he hadn't heard anything. Thump. Thump. 2 blows in succession. Louder. Deliberate. They play a lot, Robert said, still with that monotone, polite voice. Kids have so much energy, don't they? My instinct screamed for me to get out of there. Immediately. Sir, I just remembered I forgot a form in the car. Excuse me. I stood up too fast, almost dropping the tablet. Robert stood up too, partially blocking my path to the door. Still smiling. Are you sure? I can get it for you. You don't need to leave. No, I'll be right back, it's quick. I passed him sideways, avoiding contact, and practically ran to the front door. My hand shook when I turned the doorknob. It was a pleasure meeting you. His voice came from behind, still polite, still artificial. Come back anytime. I didn't respond. Just left, walked to the car as fast as possible without running, got in, locked the doors, and started the ignition. I looked in the rearview mirror. Robert was standing at the door, watching. Still smiling. I hit the gas. I drove 20 minutes straight, no stops, until I got cell signal. I called my supervisor with my hands still shaking. There's something really wrong with that house. You need to call the police. Now. I explained everything, the 6 people who didn't fit in the house, the pounding in the basement, the strange way he spoke, the feeling of imminent danger. My supervisor didn't question it. He called the sheriff's department for that jurisdiction directly. The next day, 2 deputies went to the house. What they found completely changed my understanding of what had happened. The house was occupied. There was a family living there, a couple in their early 30s and 2 young kids, 5 and 7 years old. They'd never heard of Robert Anderson. They showed the deed. They'd bought the house 3 years earlier in 2017. They'd been living there since then, no interruptions. Never rented it out, never lent the property. When the deputies called me to confirm, I was in complete shock. But I was there. I saw the man. I talked to him. Ma'am, are you sure it was this house? Couldn't it have been a nearby address? I grabbed my tablet. Checked 3 times. The GPS marked exactly that property. I'd even taken a photo of the facade, standard Census Bureau protocol. I showed the photo to the deputies when they came to interview me. It was the same house. Same paint color. Same pickup in the garage. Except when they compared it with photos taken the day of the police visit, there were subtle differences. The pickup was a different model. Different year. Slightly different shade of blue. Are you sure the pickup was black? One of the deputies asked. I was absolutely certain. Black. No doubt. But all the photos, theirs, showed a navy blue pickup. The current family was cooperative but visibly uncomfortable. The wife, a woman named Julia, asked, "This person you saw, did he say anything about the basement?" My stomach froze. He said there were 4 people there. Children. Julia and her husband exchanged a long, uncomfortable look. When we bought this house, the husband began slowly, the basement had a strange smell. Like rotting meat. We called a plumber, electrician, pest control. Nobody could identify the source. The smell comes and goes, Julia added. Sometimes it's gone for weeks. Then it comes back strong for 2 or 3 days and disappears again. We've gotten used to it, but we never figured out where it comes from. One of the deputies asked to see the basement. The family agreed. We all went down together, me, the 2 deputies, the couple. The basement was ordinary. Unfinished, concrete floor, some stacked boxes, old tools. Nothing abnormal. Except the smell. It was there that day. Strong, penetrating, unmistakable. Decomposing flesh. The deputies searched for 2 hours. Lifted boxes, checked pipes, examined the walls. Nothing. No identifiable source for that odor. Have you ever thought about breaking up the floor? One of the deputies suggested. See if there's something buried? The couple went pale at the suggestion. "We don't want to know," Julia said quietly. "If there's something here we don't want to know." The deputies respected the decision. Without concrete evidence of a crime, they couldn't force it. The case was filed as address confusion or possible prank call. But I did my own investigation afterwards. I looked up public records of the property. The current family had bought it in 2017 like they said. The previous seller had acquired the house through an estate sale. The previous owner had died in October 2019. Alone. Never married. No registered children. His name? Robert Anderson. Born March 15, 1970. The man I talked to in June 2020 had died 8 months earlier. And when they found his body, the house had already been empty for months. Abandoned. The nearest neighbors, who lived 3 miles away, said they never saw Robert with other people. He lived completely isolated. There was never a wife. There were never children. But to this day, according to the family living there now, the smell in the basement keeps appearing. And sometimes late at night they hear pounding. Coming from below. I quit the Census Bureau a week later. I didn't go back to that area. I don't want to go back. Because every time I close my eyes, I still see that smile. And I still hear that pounding. Thump, thump. And I wonder who or what were the four in the basement? And why was Robert so happy when I rang that doorbell? There are places that should remain abandoned. Places that were forgotten for a good reason. I learned this the hard way when I accepted a job inspecting a railway tunnel that had been closed for over 40 years. What I found inside completely changed my understanding of what it means to be alone in the dark. My name is Marcus, and I've been working as an infrastructure inspector for almost 10 years. Bridges, overpasses, tunnels, basically any structure the state needs to assess before renovating or demolishing. It's solitary work, but I've always preferred it that way. Fewer people, fewer problems. In March 2023, I received a request from the Department of Transportation in a town in rural Montana. They wanted to turn an old railway tunnel into a bike trail, one of those urban revitalization projects that's trendy these days. The tunnel had been deactivated in the 80s when the rail line was rerouted. Since then, nobody had officially entered it. My job was simple. Go in, assess structural conditions, take photos, take measurements, and write up a technical report. 3-day deadline. Payment up front. No complications. I arrived in town on a Monday morning. The tunnel was in a semi-industrial area on the outskirts, surrounded by vacant lots and abandoned warehouses. The south entrance was partially covered by vegetation but still accessible. It measured about 16 feet high by 20 wide, standard dimensions for railway tunnels from that era. I checked my equipment: high-powered flashlight, helmet with auxiliary light, laser measuring tape, camera, humidity meter, and a tablet for notes. Everything working perfectly. It was 9 in the morning when I went in. Sunlight illuminated the first several yards well, creating this dramatic contrast between the world outside and the darkness ahead. The tunnel was 3/4 of a mile long, about a 15-minute walk at normal pace. The first 1,300 feet were exactly what I expected. Cracked concrete in some spots, water seepage forming small puddles on the ground, vegetation growing in cracks near the entrance. There was old graffiti on the walls, nothing artistic, just tags and random phrases from the 90s. The temperature dropped about 10 degrees as soon as I completely lost natural light. The air became dense, with that characteristic smell of mold and damp earth. My breathing echoed strangely, distorted by the tunnel's acoustics. At 2,000 feet, practically the middle of the tunnel, that's when I saw it. There was something on the ground about 60 feet ahead. My flashlight caught the irregular shapes first, then the details. It was a camp. Or something like it. There was an old mattress leaning against the right side wall. Around it, organized stacks of empty food cans, beans, sardines, corn. They weren't randomly scattered. They were stacked by brand and type, forming small, perfectly aligned towers. Must have been about 50 cans there. Next to the mattress, several pieces of clothing folded in separate piles by color. White t-shirts in one pile. Dark t-shirts in another. Pants in a third. Everything folded with almost military precision. There were also plastic bottles filled with water, 6 of them all lined up against the wall. And a cardboard box full of partially burned candles. But what really made me stop was what was written on the walls. Dates. Hundreds of them written in white chalk. They started near the floor and went up as high as a person could reach. They were organized in columns like some kind of obsessive calendar. I shined my light on the first column. April 12, 1987, April 13, 1987, April 14, 1987. And so on. Years and years of dates. The person who wrote this had marked every day. Every single day. I followed the columns with my flashlight. 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010, 2020. The last date I could clearly read was from 2 weeks ago. I felt a knot in my stomach. Was someone living here? For decades? This didn't make sense. How would someone survive that long in an abandoned tunnel? Where did the food come from? The water? I grabbed my phone instinctively, but of course no signal. I was in the middle of a concrete tunnel. I decided to continue to the north exit, complete the inspection, and report everything as soon as I got out. Maybe it was just a homeless person using the tunnel as temporary shelter. The old dates could be from different people over the years. But while I rationalized, a part of me knew this was different. There was something deeply wrong about that camp. The obsessive organization. The dates spanning decades. I walked another 1,000 feet. The north exit should have been visible by now, even if just as a small dot of light in the distance. But there was nothing. Just darkness. I pointed my flashlight forward and my stomach went cold. The exit was blocked. Not by natural debris or collapse. By concrete. New concrete. Someone had literally walled up the north exit of the tunnel. I approached slowly. The blockage was solid, professional. This wasn't amateur work. They'd used forms, left the surface smooth. This required equipment, materials, time. Why would someone do this? That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Coming from behind me. From the direction of the south entrance. The only exit still open. Slow footsteps. Deliberate. The tunnel's echo distorted them, making it seem like they were coming from everywhere at once. I turned off my flashlight instinctively. The darkness that enveloped me was absolute. The kind of darkness you never experience on the surface. Not a shadow. Not an outline. Nothing. But I could hear perfectly. The footsteps continued, getting closer and closer. There was also another sound, metallic, rhythmic. Like tools clanging against each other. Someone was carrying something heavy. My heart raced. I held my breath, trying to stay completely still. Whoever it was, they were between me and the only exit. The footsteps stopped. Absolute silence. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then I heard a voice. Low, hoarse, like it hadn't been used in a long time. I know you're there. Every muscle in my body tensed. My hand gripped the flashlight so hard my fingers hurt. The voice came again, closer now. You shouldn't have come here. It wasn't threatening. It was sad. Almost resigned. I turned on my flashlight in a panicked reflex, pointing at the source of the voice. There was nobody there. I spun the beam of light frantically, sweeping the tunnel. Empty. Completely empty. But the footsteps started again, now running. Coming directly toward me. I didn't think. I just ran toward the concrete blockage, desperate. There had to be a way through. A gap. Anything. I lit up the blocked wall as I ran. And I saw it, in the lower right corner there was an opening. Small, irregular, like someone had broken part of the concrete from the inside. I threw myself on the ground and dragged myself through the opening. The concrete edges scratched my back and tore my jacket, but I didn't stop. I forced my body through the passage, feeling the tight space compress my chest. For one terrifying second I thought I'd get stuck. Then my shoulder got through, then my hip, and I found myself on the other side, in an abandoned industrial outdoor area. Daylight. Fresh air. Freedom. I looked back at the opening in the concrete. Total darkness. And silence. I ran to my car without looking back. I drove straight to the Department of Transportation. My report was brief. Tunnel uninhabitable, presence of possibly dangerous occupant, need for immediate police intervention. The police went there the next day. I didn't go with them. I wouldn't go back to that tunnel even if they paid me triple. What they found confirmed exactly what I saw. The camp was there. The organized cans. The folded clothes. The dates on the walls. And yes, the last date was from 2 weeks before my visit. But they also found something I hadn't noticed, a backpack hidden behind the mattress. Inside it, documents. An ID card. It belonged to a man named Daniel Warren. Missing since March 1994. Case never solved. At 34 years old, he left for work one morning and simply disappeared. Left behind a wife and a 3-year-old son. The tunnel's occupant was him. Or had been. The police conducted extensive searches for 3 weeks. They brought in tracking dogs, thermal scanning equipment, even a specialist in search and rescue in confined areas. They never found Daniel. Or any sign of him beyond that camp and his belongings. But they found something that keeps me awake to this day. During a deeper search of the tunnel, near the concrete blockage at the north exit, One of the officers noticed marks on the walls. Deep scratches in the concrete. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Fingernail marks. Made from inside the blockage. As if someone or something had tried to dig an exit, scratching the concrete until their hands bled. But here's the part one can't stop thinking about. When I entered that tunnel, I entered through the south exit. The only open exit. The footsteps I heard, those heavy, deliberate footsteps carrying tools, were coming from the south entrance, following my trail into the tunnel. It wasn't someone living inside trying to chase me out. It was someone who followed me in. And Daniel Warren, the man who lived in that tunnel for decades, marking each solitary day on a concrete wall, he wasn't hiding from society. He was hiding from something. Or someone. I never went back to that tunnel. The bike trail project was canceled. The Department of Transportation officially sealed both entrances with concrete blocks and warning signs. But sometimes, late at night, I think about Daniel. I think about how he must have arrived at that tunnel in 1994, running from something terrible enough to make him abandon his family. I think about the decades he spent there, counting the days, organizing cans, waiting. And I think about the person or thing that was carrying metal tools and followed me into that darkness. Did Daniel finally stop hiding? Or was it that, after 30 years, what he feared finally found him? I'll never know. And honestly, I prefer it that way. If these stories left you unsettled, leave a like on the video. It helps more people find this content. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next disturbing stories I'll bring you. And tell me in the comments, would you go into that tunnel? Or ring the doorbell at that house? I want to know your thoughts. See you next time.